Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Doing another weekly Sunday morning session. And today we're going to cover the 5 personalities or 5 personalities and the use of compassion, empathy, and sympathy. And so, starting off, basing the theory of personalities on Chinese philosophy, and this is coming from Dr. Mao Xing-Ni's book, Live Your Ultimate Life, which I reviewed several months back, and we've had many little videos about his book and the different personality theories. Basically, it's 5 personalities that you can pretty much categorize anyone into, and they include the wood, what's called the wood element, the fire element, the earth element, metal element, and water element. I'll just go through them and see if you can discover which of the 5 you may be. Now, you may be a little bit of each, but you'll most likely be primarily one of them. So you listen to the descriptions, and then you try to pick out which one seems to match your personality. Okay, the wood element is considered a authoritative type personality. And I'm just reading here from Dr. Mao's book, The Introduction to the Different Personalities. And he says, as a wood element person, you tend to be highly motivated and have a very strong personality that some identify as type A. You are authoritative, confident, intense, smart, decisive, and responsible. Wood personality is usually characterized as positive and charismatic. You command respect and make a good manager. Okay, so you can kind of think of, or at least I think of, the wood element type of personality as somebody who's typically could be a boss or a manager, somebody that leads others to get things done. So, generally a pretty smart person, somebody who has a lot of energy to motivate people to move things along. So that would be the wood type personality. So you can imagine if you have any of those characteristics, and if so, that would make you a wood personality. Okay, next personality we'll describe is the fire element. Okay, again reading from Dr. Mao's introduction. The fire element. A person with strong fire energy is very articulate, charismatic, and excels at leadership. Your element commands strong emotional expression and experiences, which can yield satisfying results and personal success. It would be helpful to build your leadership skills and use them to help others fulfill their goals and dreams. Your special ability to motivate others and inspire their passion is a personal asset that will allow you to joyfully connect with those around you. Okay, the fire personality, he says is joyful and passionate and charismatic, and I find a lot of the characteristics of the fire personality is somebody that is very emotional and passionate, in contrast to, like, say, the wood personality. The wood personality kind of is the leader, the type A personality. The fire personality can do the same thing, but they're kind of led by emotions, and which can change quite frequently. So they might find the fire personality is always is quite changeable, because they're always paying attention to emotions, and those emotions can help to lead other people and be charismatic. But generally, I just think of the fire person as a fiery personality that has a lot of emotional output and input. Okay, so let's go on to the third personality type, and we'll talk about the earth personality, or the earth element. Okay, the earth element, considered caring and empathetic and nurturing. The earth element tends to be caring, empathetic, and nurturing. Like the earth's bounty that sustains all lives, you express your nature through kindness and concern for those around you. You possess a natural desire to tend to others. You seek first to understand and are therefore empathetic to people suffering in misfortune. Okay, so the earth element I tend to think of as the nurturing type personality. Typically it'd be someone who's in a caring profession, for example, doctors or nurses, somebody that listens to others, intends to others, tries to understand them and have empathy so that they can help others' misfortunes and suffering. Okay, so if that seems to describe a lot of how you behave or how you act or how you feel, then you may well be the earth personality. Okay, going on to the fourth, and these aren't in any order other than we're just going through 5 of them. Okay, so the fourth one we go through today is the metal personality. This could be considered the intellectual and analytical. The metal personality tends to be intellectual, inquisitive, and analytical. Excels at taking information that may overwhelm others and organizing it into you have strong will and confidence, springing not from an excessive ego, but from a rooted connection to your very being and your essence, your foundation, and your source. There's a depth of quality to your being, like that of the blue sea, again a water vision, and it's mysterious. So if you kind of think of the water element as actually kind of being like water, it flows, it can be mysterious. It's kind of like almost the nature of things, because we all come from water basically, and we have the earth is mostly water and so forth. So great capacity for endurance, strong and confident from a deep-rooted connection to your very being. Okay, so of all the elements, the water element is kind of the mysterious one. So if you seem mysterious to other people or even to yourself, then you may very well be the water element. So once again, the 5 elements, choose which one you may be most like, even though you may have a little bit of each, and that will be your defining characteristics, and then I'll show you why that's important to know. So again, the wood element is the kind of the type A personality. It could usually be a manager or a boss. Fire element, somebody who's very emotional and can lead others through those emotions that they understand. Earth element is kind of like the caring person, the nurturing person, typically like a doctor or a nurse, somebody that's trying to help people out of suffering. Metal element, the analytical personality that likes to figure out things and make sense of lots of different data and try to kind of do things in a logical order. And the water element, the kind of mysterious element, has a sense of continuity and permanence and mysterious. All right. So how do these apply? Okay. So once you know what your main personality is, you can be aware of the advantages of that and the disadvantages. So say you're a wood element, who would be a good boss, a good leader, which would be the advantages. Now you could have some disadvantages by taking it too far. So if you're, for example, too overbearing in managing your employees, for example, that could be a disadvantage. So the idea is you'd want to balance out your good qualities and those that could not be so good in some circumstances. So you want to balance out the ability to be a good leader and the possible not so good ability to be overbearing and not respectful of your employees as you're trying to lead them in the organization. Say you're a fire element, your advantage would be understanding emotions, understanding others' emotions. Disability might be that you get too carried away by emotions, and maybe your emotions are constantly changing, so you can't get a continuity into your life because the emotions are constantly changing things. So you might go from one thing to another, not complete certain tasks, for example. All right, so the idea is you take your personality, realize what is good and strong about that and can be helpful to yourself and others, and then take the things that you might be doing to excess and try to balance those. All right, so now that leads us into the idea of using those personalities in developing a sense of compassion and empathy and sympathy. All right, we've done a few weeks on the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. I'll review those. Sympathy is when you notice that somebody's in discomfort or in pain, and you have some idea of what that might be about because you have experienced the same feeling. Or at least you're guessing that you've experienced the same feeling that the person you're observing is having. Now, it's at this point, it's just a best guess because you don't really know anything other than your experience, other than what you're observing. So that's sympathy. All right, so then to get a better handle on what the truth of the matter is, we go into the empathy. And empathy is where you not only see somebody in distress, you begin to investigate what more is really going on. You can do that by listening to the person. So you approach the person, you listen to what they say, watch expressions, body language, and facial expressions, and mostly listening to see what they tell you, and then you start to more closely understand what they are experiencing, why they are in distress or in pain from what they've described to you. So now you actually are beginning to feel the same thing they're feeling, whatever the emotion might be. All right, so that's all good, getting closer to the truth. But if you continue to feel the same emotions they're having, you might not be too effective because you may be overwhelmed by the same emotions they're having. So that might not be good. So what we need to do next is to move into compassion. Compassion is recognizing that something is in distress, listening to the person so you know more exactly what they are feeling and actually feeling their distress or their emotion. And now compassion moves you into doing something about it. So there's an activity or active role going on where you try to alleviate their suffering or pain in any way that can be possible during those circumstances. So compassion is actually doing something about alleviating pain. All right, now, so how does that fit in with the different personalities, the 5 different personalities? Okay, so if you recognize not only in yourself what your personality is, then while you're listening to this person in distress, you obviously want to be balanced yourself. So you say your fire personality, you don't want to be so overwhelmed with the emotions of the person and your own emotions that you become unbalanced. So you want to moderate those emotions while you're listening and trying to alleviate distress. And same thing, say you are a type A personality or wood personality. Well, typically at your work place, you would tell somebody to do something. You'd give them advice, or you'd order them to do something. Well, if you're trying to alleviate somebody's distress, you probably do not want to do that. So you'd want to balance your ability to lead people and to get them to do things into, in a sense, not doing that. In this case, because you want to be listening to the person so that you can alleviate their pain or discomfort, not telling them what to do, unless, of course, they ask you. And typically, people in distress do not ask for advice. They just want somebody to listen. Okay, so if you're a wood personality, then you want to balance out your personality. All right, now, it works in reverse as well. So say you're talking or listening to somebody that's in distress. And let's say for example, you are a wood personality, so you're kind of like the leader or the boss or a type A personality. Okay, so somebody's telling you, oh boy, I'm having a relationship problem with my best friend and just can't seem to work it out for, whatever. So then they go on to describe why they're having this problem in their relationship. All right, now, as a human, we tend to, whenever we hear something or see something, one of the first things we do is we try to make sense of it and try to have an explanation of why this is, who, what, where, when, why, how. So instead of just listening to the person, we start to make judgments. So they might talk about their relationship and how the last couple of days has not gone one real well, and there have been arguments back and forth. So our mind tends to snap towards judging, saying to ourselves, well, I wonder who's at fault here. Is it the person we're listening to, or is it the other person that's at fault? And especially if we say we're the wood personality, where we're usually trying to solve problems at work and lead people to move on to a task, we might be tempted to be trying to figure out, well, what's the problem here and how can we solve this problem? Well, we don't want to do that. So by being aware of your personality type and that and also the other person's personality type. So if you think they're, for example, they may be the fire type, so they're kind of emotional. So you know that automatically they're going to be going back and forth between different emotions, being very emotional, recognizing emotions in everybody else. So if they're having a relationship problem, you can expect that you're going to hear some quite emotional talking. So knowing that, then that also allows you to not be judgmental. So you might, your brain might say, well, they shouldn't be so emotional. Oh, if they could just calm down. And you might be tempted to actually tell the person that. Well, that's probably the last thing you want to do. So the idea of the personality, if you know your personality, you know their typical type of personality type, then you use balance in listening to that person, and especially by not judging anything. So there's where the confluence of knowing your personality type, knowing other people's personality type, and knowing how to be compassionate and listening and not judging will help you to have some sense of healing and alleviating of discomfort or pain in the other person. All right, so that's kind of the basis here, where we're trying to coordinate the personality theory, the 5 different personalities, and using your skills in empathy and compassion and listening and feeling the other person's emotions, and then being able to listen so that there's some healing going on, primarily by listening and not judging. And then last week we went over some techniques. You can look back at the video where I suggested you try to do a little exercise for 20 minutes for 20 days to practice your ability to recognize and do sympathy, empathy, and compassion. The idea is you basically sit in a calm, aware state for 20 minutes and go through a mental exercise of seeing in your mind's eye an example of somebody in distress, and recognizes by sympathy what that may be. Sympathy, of course, you don't exactly know what it is. Then you move on to trying to figure out more exactly what it is. So in your mind's eye, you imagine this person or situation where there's some distress, and you listen to them. So imagine in your mind's eye that they're talking to you and telling you what's going on. So now you're getting a better sense of what the distress is, and you actually start feeling their emotion or even their distress. And then you move on to compassion, where you let those emotions dissolve in yourself so you do not become overwhelmed, but yet you continue listening and figure out how you can alleviate their distress. And it's usually primarily by listening and having a sense of loving kindness as you're with the person. And then now we've added this week the idea of knowing your personality type and how to keep that personality balanced, knowing the person you're listening to who's in distress, knowing what kind of personality type they very well may be, and so not judging, just letting it be that you know that they're one of those 5 personalities. They may be different than you, they might be the same as you, but in any event, you're not judging anything. You're just listening with the idea of being compassionate and loving kindness to alleviate their distress. All right, so that's the basis for what we're trying to accomplish on practicing compassion and empathy, and using our knowledge of the 5 personality to not judge and to realize other people may be different than you, but that's okay. All right, so we'll wrap this up for today, and you can play back the last several of my videos on the idea of compassion and empathy, and use some of those techniques for the 20 days for 20 minutes a day, and see if you can improve your sense of using empathy and compassion, and now try to incorporate what you know of the personality that you may be, and just play back this video and see more clearly what main type of personality you may be, and you may be a little bit of each or a little bit of others, but you'll be mainly one of those 5 personality types, and then try to balance your personality as you're moving through life to not be too extreme one way or the other of your particular personality type. All right, so we'll see you next time on Sunday morning from LaBelle, Florida. I'm Don Browne, and see you next time.